Oh, come on, you fucking shit. Come on, this is important. Scroll up, you cunt! Apologies for anyone watching this right now, because right now Discord is being a righteous little shithead. Jesus. Some potent stuff. So, I want to start this video off where it began. Now, I won't admit to what it was, but there were... how do I word this? Certain elements involved. Let's go with that. In the making of this prediction. Not going to say what because, you know, it could end up in some legal trouble. But this first happened on June 15th, 2018. That's when the first prediction came in. And good Lord Almighty, it's a long one. So, like I said, there were certain elements involved that put me into a condition of a trance-like state. I call it the shaman. I was basically in a state of a shaman. And this is my prediction. Within the next 20 years, I'll see the Everglades disappear. And over the next century, the whole of Florida will be all but lost due to sea level rise. And big cities along the coast like Miami will be islands of concrete atolls for pirates. It's so fucking, it's wild looking, man. It's like it's like an outline where Florida was, man. And about 5 years from now, terms like we will see an annual sea level rise of about 1 centimeter per year will be a common thing. And in my vision, Miami, or what's left of downtown, is an aquatic urban war zone between pirates and the Coast Guard. I'm assuming the U.S. Coast Guard. It's they've been hitting shipping for about 5 years now. It's like this has gotten this bad, that is. They hide and store their loot en route to the mainland under the guise of old world salvaging, because boating rigs had got real hardcore after the big flood happens. I'm seeing a vision of the future and speaking in the now in reference to said vision, meaning that I'm speaking in the present of my vision, basically saying wherever in the future time stream that this vision is taking place, I'm speaking of the present of that time, not the present of today when this video is recorded. And I felt like I needed to get this out here because there was a video that came up on Facebook that was a little disconcerting, to say the least, and I apologize for the absolute craptacular camera quality. And right to the mainland with the guys of old chain. New York wasn't given up even after it flooded. Even after it flooded, they have reinforced the bottoms of buildings with concretes. From 3 stories up off the water line is air, and for about a story up from the water line works for water access. So basically, what I saw was if you have a 10-story building and the new ocean level was at the top of the third story, the fourth story was also concreted up and basically like a pillar dock, if that makes any sense. So take this for instance. If you have 1, 2, 3, you had 4, which was also concreted up. Basically, if water was at the top of the third story, from the top of the fourth story down was solid concrete. That's what I saw. And for about a story up from the water line, works for water access. It's still a city, New York is, but not like the old world class. It's like from above the waterline, modern art style, cyberpunk-ish. The Chrysler Building is a war monument, and it's the last old building in Manhattan, last standing old building in Manhattan. Got it. Holy Mother, gotta see it. It's like an island of steel and concrete just came out of the water. It looks like the Metro Realm from Hot Wheels. Now my vision skips to what I can only approximate is 70 years in the future. Towns that got away alive have become islands, and coral reefs and are a massive shipping hazard. Notice almost. Take Sebring, for instance. What I'm basically saying there is the old buildings have basically turned all of old Florida into a giant reef of sorts, and it's a massive shipping hazard. Ocean Drive on Miami Beach is a historic reef. Dude, Highlands County will be mostly spared from the worst of it. Lake Placid is gone. Most of central Cuba is washed away, but the outside mountains are spared. Havana is a popular fishing ground and is known as the Great Havana Reef. It's all the way 100 years from now. Antarctica is a slough with mining. Russia and China have been fighting wars with each other for 15 years now. 15 years, both on their borders and for their claim in the Antarctic mining for the compressed natural gas and ores, CNG. Miami, much like Havana, has been left to rot by most and is deemed a historic reef by the remaining United States in 2094. Most of the central Rocky Mountain states make it out okay, but only high up. Towns once miles from the ocean become beachfront property too. By 2107, a memorial statue was landed where downtown used to be in downtown Miami, commemorating past wars and those who fought them to honor the Great Reef of Miami. In the latter half of 2060, it became at least somewhat viable to fishing ground meaning. And there was a sub lost off of Dodge Island during the War of 2068. The one with the pirates sat on its port side on the north side of the MacArthur Causeway and between Dodge Island and downtown. And there's a wrecked fishing boat lost upriver in 2065 in a bad storm that's laying on its port side across the river from Garcia's, which Garcia's, if you don't know, I'm from Miami, is this little local fishery eatery kind of place that's right on the river. It's sort of by the mouth by downtown, but it's got really good food. Category 6 super hurricane Melissa. There was a loss. There was also a lost sub base in the back of downtown inside MIA, Miami International. Built for the war of 2068 against the pirates, the U.S. Navy, what was left, built it to hold the city. After so many years, the exposed steel skeletons went from wet and covered in shit to barnacle packed so fiercely by 2050. There had been some sport fishers out there in the 2050s. By 2030, Miami will be some of the last of Miami land still barely above water. And all throughout the 2040s, the world was drowning. DC's beachfront. By 2038, New Yorkers are concreting up the old foundations. By this time, preparing for the next 200 years of sea level rise. They tried a seawall in 2029. It failed when it went into service. Construction had begun in 2025. And when it finished in the summer of 2029, the biggest storm since Margaret from 2020 had hit, collapsing the seawall in 256 places. Over 200,000 died. One day, one. Okay? One day, one. By the time they had saved all who they could, the death toll had become some 475,000 strong. Between the flooding and the lack of access for first responders, having to go from ground vehicles to boats just to get anywhere, the storm had killed so many and become an icon for the next century, far outshadowing 9/11, June 26. That was the day the storm hit. (6/22/20), Hurricane Chappelle, Cat 4 strength, hit New York City. Inside and out harder than Andrew did in 1992 in Miami. Flooding had got 6-foot storm surge on Main in the heart of New York City at Times Square. To save fuel, ships started driving closer to the old beach line, sailing closer to the old beach line. And as the years went by, this went over several hours, by the way. The water got deeper and deeper and deeper. And because most of the ships were aid and landing ships, it meant they had to. By 2040, most of downtown Miami street level was about 4 foot underwater. And the really big 5-way intersection in Tokyo was last seen for the last time dry in 2045, and at the end of spring in mid-April sank beneath the waves for the last time by mid-summer 2046 when king tide came in, and from August 20th, no one has seen that intersection above water again. It became a big social deal in Japan, but it was too late. The damage was so badly done that there was no way of fixing it. And much like later Neo Tokyo was born. Think of it much the same way as New York from Futurama. and the Tokyo Island chain was born. Each hill/island had its own name. By 2049, the port cranes in Miami have been deemed both a national monument and a wildlife zone for seabirds and clams. Unfortunately, most of the cranes were no longer standing upright anymore. Only three, called the Holy Wave Sisters, were still standing up. They were the only ones that were also salvaged from most as well, as they were the newest. Dodge Island was declared a national cleanup site in 2029 due to a ship out of Colombia. Once cleaned up, the port was closed. From 2025 up to the port, or 2025 on, the port was on the verge of closing. By 2024, the king tide closed the port due to water damage. Lowest parts on Dodge Island may have only been 6 inches underwater, and every year after that the yearly king tide would come through the city and maybe creep up an inch or more. The neon lights of Ocean Drive were lit for the last time in 2023. In was the storm of 2023 in late August. It knocked out power for the whole island. And we're down since August 23rd, 2023. And we're lit for the last time on New Year's Eve. For the second time for 2024, which shortly after came the monthly high tide and knocked out the generators. In January 26, 2020, or January 6, 2025, most of 95, or that was in reference to the neon. In January 6, 2025, most of 95 was in need of massive repair at this time, and was so poorly taken care of that it was 100% under work. And by 2027, the city as a whole was evacuated. That year, Chicago had its worst late winter spring snowstorm ever, 25 feet of snow. Seattle had a really bad flood and a big shipwreck on the bayfront of downtown. Big ecological disaster. Vegas had a big bomb threat in 2021. Left a big hotel as a smoldering wreck. Though I'm not sure if that was because of an actual bomb or because of something else. But still standing. By 2028, the Great Barrier Reef is used as a test bed for bomb testing by the Chinese and as a test bed for coral regrowth. In 2026, China hits a big oil pocket in the South China Sea floor. And I had realization about a movie that me and Mom saw. The nights in Miami in 2032 are so star-filled, with most of South Florida underwater. The remnants of Miami has a starry night sky to defy belief, like 100,000 jewels painted across the night sky. The Austin storm of 2033 rocked Texas like Harvey never could. And that was it for that day. That was it for 6/15/18. And then I had another one on the next day on 6/16/18. And that's using the American calendar for all you friggin' weirdos in Europe. Samuel McConaughey. For some reason, that name came out to me. It's happening again. I see how the battle for Miami started off. The now Miami Islanders were breaking off from the mainland U.S. and trying to settle as a new island nation. And someone stole something important. Information, a map, a jewel. It's a little fuzzier this time. The billionaires also wanted to keep their property too. The life of a daughter of one of the landlords, the billionaires. And had been using pirates as mercenaries to keep the status quo there and their own private navy. Wow, even sunk Miami looks great. Most of the pirates are from the Bahamas, or where I should say were. Most became seafaring peoples to preserve their island heritage. Bayfront Havana is lost. That town in South Africa will be where can say it started, where we can say where it started. The water wars. Something about octopus too. And something about a cure for a cancer out of Cali too. And I remember that one. This was a really fuzzy vision, but I do remember it was a singular type of cancer. For all I know, it probably was prostate cancer or something completely worthless like that. Like, I don't know, a cure for skin cancer, all forms. And a big deal movie set in South Carolina. Something. Something. Those first 20 years, though, as Miami slips away, something beaches, something about the beaches being raised, and hermit crabs. Downtown will get a lot of sand buildup leading up to becoming a reef. It happens so fast there isn't really time to demo the buildings. Like within 10 years. Not from now, but when it does happen. And that was the end of that vision, I think. Then we scroll up to last Tuesday, which is, I look at my calendar, which was the 19th, if I'm not mistaken. So 6/19/18. After the sea reclaimed the land from what was left of became known as the Florida Banks and the new Florida Keys, D.C. had remained a city due to its high location, but this fate was not spared to Miami and others. Atlanta became a port for fishermen, and I think that only became the case because I've seen a couple of maps now since this, because it was a big industrial port building boats. So I don't see how Atlanta could become, because it's well north in there. It's deep inland. It's, even if all the ice in the world were to melt right now, it would not be waterfront property. For fishermen, probably to sell their wares. And by the way, 2020 or 2075, and by 2075, a thriving fishing city. The atolls that were downtown Miami have at that time came known as a resupplying port, but not a hospitable one. Lowland Brazil is gone, and with it most of the rainforest. Brazil's fleeing populace were the catalyst in many South American civil wars. Many rare forest creatures died in the many wars. The Panama Canal was bombed in an attempt by Panamanian fighters to leverage the world for support. The West Lock was lost in a battle, blown to bits by fools. World trade ground to a halt, only making things worse for everyone. The headlines will read, Presidente Raul Espada assassinated by Panamanian terrorists in an attack on both the heavily contested western locks of the Panamanian Canal. The name Espada only comes to mind because of something to do with a sword, and that's the proper Spanish word for sword is espada, sword of Panama. That's what it is. And there's still plenty more to go. The Arab oil crisis will drive the world economy into the ground. The area around the Arab Gulf will be consumed in flames as war rages across the whole region, leaving China, Russia, and the rest of the world desperate for gasoline. America is a wasteland. The few remaining plain states are empty, devoid of life. Someone set off a lost nuke in a sunken silo deep in South Kansas, causing a massive wave to wipe out the shores of the plain states. It was a Chinese spy. Took out a sub. And an Emmett's class? Something about Nimitz class. Maybe it was a Nimitz. Something like that. Wondering. Wounding an already struggling Navy. Horse became a popular way of getting around up there and farther north. The Rockies and coast are coastal as fuck and look more like Central Pacific meets New England area. Coarse, tough, and kind of cold. Big manufacturing areas are taken over by local city-states. Detroit winds are no longer seeing the river as a border, abandoning the remaining U.S. and Canadian governments. With China in chaos, Pittsburgh comes alive with steel once more, producing most of the new steel in North America. The town is choked with steel mill smoke, and the owners return to the ways that things were done in the 1800s, toxic with short lifespans and poor working conditions. The rich refuse to give up New York as their business center, but a new hub was sparking up in Memphis. The price of electric guitars shoots through the roof to insane levels, like $40,000 for $40,000 today's money equivalent for a cheap one, like $100 shit thing. With most of Texas lost, most of the beef production slows to a crawl, and the price of beef is like $1,000 a pound. Chicken becomes a staple meat item in North America, with pig being a regional favorite, but only in pockets. Wild boar are hunted with such ferocity. Silicon Valley somehow gets away lucky, I guess, or it's moved. And the vision I saw was that the name Silicon Valley gets away alive. The latest and meanest tech is still produced in a place known as Silicon Valley. Though I cannot say if that has changed where that place is. Like the new Silicon Valley or some shit like that. It's kind of blurred, to be honest. A lot of California car yards are lost to the seas, but the Leno collection survived. It's now based somewhere out of the Rockies, or it's in New Hampshire. It's really mountainy. Leno died before this happened, before the world fell. And his beloved collection was in Cali almost until it couldn't be moved on the road. It's still considered one of the greatest collections of gasoline, diesel, and steam engines ever assembled. The cars are curated by the grandchildren of some of the last hot rodders. The crown jewels of the collection include 1800 steam cars collection, a stationary steam engine from some factory, and the Chrysler turbine, which arguably I say is still one of the crown jewels of the collection today, because there's only 3 of those damn cars left in the entirety of existence. The Jay Leno Mopars are among some of the most pristine cars, and the few Chrysler cars even remaining at all. The winters are colder, the summers are shorter. The children of the future will pay for our sins. The Louvre collection survived and was placed in storage. Russia is a much more fractured nation. The EU imploded a long time ago when things had become so dog-eat-dog world. With a good portion of China underwater, the few remaining commies try for Antarctica, but the Russians had the same idea. Trump went down as one of the worst full-stop presidents of the United States. Worst full-stop presidents in the United States' short remaining history. More acknowledged as a joke, the remaining government was purged of traitors and big business goons. Without the big money interests, the remaining government lost a lot of credibility and was weakened almost to the point of imploding, and would have had the American people not helped prop it up by defending their land. A few skirmishes were fought here and there, with paid mercs by big money to try and assert control of what was left of the Western world, both here and in Europe. Sadly, the Americans were the lucky ones making it out by the skin of their teeth. Human slavery was bred anew by means of controlling someone by their income, much the same way it was done during the 1800s. And if you didn't, you were killed. New monarchies were born, one from corporate empires, and the few independent city-states scared the bourgeoisie, Pittsburgh especially, and the newly formed city of Cadillac was a prolific weapons depot. And I want to say that was what Windsor and Detroit ended up merging into becoming. That's what I saw in the vision. And like that, it's gone. It's fuzzy. Got more details. And that's it. No dates this time on the second one, but I bring this up because of an article I just came across on Facebook talking about you fucker. I'm gonna share it. Tell me I shared it. Talking about Antarctic ice drops. Ooh. I forget who it was by. maybe AJ or Box. But it was talking about how the western side of Antarctica, there's a big glacier under there that's kind of just floating on the top level. There's nothing really underneath to support it, and that it's sitting below sea level. And that once a glacier gives out, it'll flood all of the western part of Antarctica, meaning that it'll increase sea level rise by a ridiculous amount. As it is, ice melt has tripled over the last decade. This was from that article. And if it continues to triple each decade, within the next 50 years, there will be a lot of coastal cities. It might double every 5 years. That's me just talking out my ass, but that's kind of my gut feeling. Oh, fuck off. Did I share it? Shit. I didn't, did I? But that's all for me for right now. Hopefully I'm wrong. I hope that I am wrong. Till next time, peace.